In 1929, a forgotten map shocked the entire scientific world. It showed a coastline that shouldn't have existed for centuries, a coastline buried under 2 miles of solid ice. Antarctica wasn't discovered until 1820 officially by history books. But this map was drawn 300 years earlier. Its name, the Piri Reis map, 1513 Ottoman Empire. An Ottoman admiral drew details modern satellites would later confirm. How does a 16th century mapmaker know unmapped, ice-buried terrain? Some researchers say he didn't invent it, he copied it. Copied from sources older than recorded human civilization itself. Stick with me because this gets stranger by the minute. We're going to trace Ottoman naval intelligence piece by piece. Then overlay it against real satellite scans of Antarctica today. You'll see the match scientists have argued about for decades. You'll also hear why historians push back hard against it. By the end, you decide. Coincidence or forgotten history rewritten. This isn't clickbait speculation with zero sourcing behind it. Every claim here comes from documented naval and academic records. The 1949 seismic survey, Hapgood's research, Ottoman court archives. All real, all contested, all fascinating when laid out properly. Because somebody, somewhere, may have mapped a coastline before ice. And that possibility alone should unsettle everything you learned in school. Let's start with the man who drew the impossible map. An admiral, a spy, a cartographer working in total secrecy. His name was Piri Reis, and his map still confuses experts. Found by accident in 1929, inside a crumbling Ottoman palace. Nobody knew what they were looking at, not at first. Then someone noticed the southern coastline, and froze completely. Because it looked exactly like something nobody could have seen. Here's exactly how deep this rabbit hole actually goes. Piri Reis wasn't just a mapmaker, he was a warrior. Born around 1465 into the heart of Ottoman naval power. He served under his uncle, a legendary Mediterranean pirate admiral. Kemal Reis taught him navigation, warfare, and cartography firsthand. Together they raided ships, collected charts, and studied every coastline. This wasn't casual hobby mapping, it was strategic military intelligence. The Ottomans were building an empire that spanned 3 continents. Accurate maps meant naval dominance across the Mediterranean and beyond. By 1513, Piri Reis had risen into serious naval command. That same year, he compiled his now famous world map. Drawn on gazelle skin using ink, gold, and obsessive precision. Only a fragment of the original map survives today. It covers West Africa, Brazil, and the mysterious southern coastline. The rest was likely lost, destroyed, or simply never found. In 1929, a German theologian rediscovered it inside Topkapi Palace. Historians were stunned by its accuracy for a 1513 chart. Piri Reis wrote his own explanation directly onto the map. He claimed to have used roughly 20 older reference sources, including, he wrote, a map made by Christopher Columbus himself. That Columbus map has never been found, not once, anywhere. Piri Reis also cited Portuguese, Arab, and ancient Greek sources. The Ottomans had access to captured European naval intelligence constantly. Trade routes, conquest, and piracy fed Istanbul's cartographic archives. This wasn't one man's imagination, it was compiled global knowledge. Later, Piri Reis wrote the Kitab-ul-Bari, a naval masterwork. It detailed harbors, currents, and coastlines across the Mediterranean world. The man was methodical, disciplined, and obsessed with accuracy, which makes the southern coastline anomaly even harder to dismiss. Because sloppy guesswork wasn't really his documented reputation at all. Eventually, though, his fortunes in the Ottoman court turned dark. He fell from favor after a failed campaign near Yemen. In 1553, Piri Reis was executed by order of the Sultan. He died without explaining exactly where his southern data came from. That silence is exactly where 2 centuries of speculation began. Because the fragment he left behind refuses to fully add up. Its coastline curves in a way scholars still argue over. Some say it's South America, stretched and misread by copyists. Others say it mirrors something much further south than that, something that, by 1513, no European had ever charted. No expedition record, no logbook, no named voyage exists anywhere. And yet the lines on gazelle skin remain stubbornly specific. This contradiction is exactly why the map still gets studied. Not just by conspiracy theorists, but by serious cartographic historians. The question isn't whether Piri Reis was skilled, he clearly was. The question is what exactly he was skillfully copying. and whose eyes actually saw that southern coastline first. Because somebody at some point had to draw it originally. Piri Reis never claimed to have sailed there himself. He claimed only to be compiling knowledge already in circulation. That single detail is where our next mystery truly begins. Here's the exact anomaly that sparked 6 decades of debate. The map's southern edge shows a jagged, detailed coastline. Some researchers argue it resembles Antarctica's Queen Maud Land coast. Not the ice-covered coast we see, but the bedrock beneath. Antarctica has been buried under ice for millions of years. Officially, humans didn't lay eyes on it until 1820. Russian explorer Bellingshausen is usually credited with that discovery. So how could a coastline predate that by 3 centuries? This question exploded into public awareness in the 1960s. A historian named Charles Hapgood picked up the mystery then. He wrote Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings in 1966. His argument was bold, controversial, and deeply unconventional for historians. Hapgood believed ancient civilizations mapped the world before recorded history. He proposed something called Earth's crust displacement theory to explain it. The idea: Earth's outer crust once shifted dramatically over time. Antarctica, he claimed, sat in a warmer, ice-free position once. An advanced seafaring culture supposedly mapped its coast back then. That knowledge, he argued, passed down through generations of copyists, eventually reaching Piri Reis through his 20 compiled source maps. It's a dramatic theory. It's also heavily disputed by geologists. Mainstream science has never validated rapid crustal displacement of that scale. Tectonic plates move roughly as fast as fingernails grow, not overnight. Still, Hapgood's book found a massive, devoted popular audience. It even received a cautiously worded letter from an Air Force officer. That letter is often cited as semi-official validation, though contextually limited. The officer analyzed the map's projection, not its historical origin claims. That distinction gets lost constantly in retellings of this story. Regardless, the theory refused to fade from public fascination. Because something about that southern coastline kept nagging at people. In 1949, a seismic survey mapped Antarctica's bedrock beneath the ice. Researchers compared that bedrock outline to the old 1513 map. Some enthusiasts claimed a striking resemblance between the two coastlines. Cartographers, however, were far more skeptical of that specific comparison. They pointed out the map's proportions don't cleanly match reality. Distances are compressed, angles shift, and features seem rearranged. Piri Reis himself admitted his sources were often contradictory and imperfect. He wrote about reconciling conflicting older maps as best he could. That honesty actually undercuts the idea of one perfect ancient source. It suggests a patchwork compilation, not a single lost expedition. Still, the visual similarity is compelling enough to keep debate alive. Look closely and the coastline does bend southward unexpectedly. Whether that's Antarctica or an exaggerated South America remains unresolved. This single anomaly launched dozens of books, documentaries, and theories. It's cited constantly in alternative history and lost civilization circles. Mainstream academia largely treats it as an interesting cartographic curiosity. Not, historians stress, as proof of a secret pre-ice expedition. The gap between those two positions is exactly what we're exploring. Because dismissing it entirely ignores genuinely unresolved cartographic questions. And accepting it entirely ignores serious, well-documented geological problems. The truth likely sits somewhere uncomfortably between myth and map-making error. To understand this map, you have to understand Ottoman intelligence. The empire ran one of history's most sophisticated spy networks. Istanbul sat at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Every conquered port meant access to captured foreign nautical charts. Piri Reis's own notes describe using a captured Spanish sailor's map. That sailor, he claimed, had voyaged with Columbus personally. If true, it links this map directly to early American exploration. The Ottomans also traded extensively with Venetian and Genoese merchants. Italian city-states held some of Europe's most advanced navigational charts. Espionage, piracy, and diplomacy all fed Ottoman cartographic knowledge steadily. Piri Reis mentions using Portuguese maps of the African coastline too. Portugal was actively exploring southward around Africa during this period. Their charts were state secrets, heavily guarded and rarely shared. Yet somehow fragments consistently reached Ottoman naval archives regardless. This wasn't unusual. Intelligence gathering was standard naval practice everywhere. What's unusual is the southern detail appearing before official discovery. Portuguese sailors were pushing boundaries further south than history often credits. Some historians suggest unrecorded voyages reached further than documented logs show. Unofficial exploration happened constantly, driven by trade secrecy, not glory. Captains sometimes hid discoveries to protect competitive commercial advantages. A coastline found today might not appear in records for decades. This creates real gaps that fuel legitimate historical speculation today. Piri Reis compiled from roughly 20 sources by his own count. Some ancient, some contemporary, some now completely lost to history. He mentions Alexander the Great's era maps, extraordinarily old references. Whether those attributions are accurate remains genuinely difficult to verify. Ottoman scholars were known to embellish provenance for added authority. Claiming ancient origin lent credibility in scholarly and courtly circles. So skepticism about his stated sources is entirely reasonable here. Still, the sheer number of compiled sources is documented fact. This wasn't guesswork, it was systematic intelligence gathering and synthesis. Naval powers didn't share charts freely, they stole and copied them. Piri Reis sat at the center of that information pipeline directly. His access likely exceeded almost any single European cartographer's reach. That access explains genuine accuracy in the map's Atlantic coastlines. Brazil's coast, for instance, is remarkably precise for the era. Which raises the real question: why would the southern section differ? Either it's compiled error or it reflects a genuinely unique source. No expedition log confirming a southern voyage has ever surfaced. Not Ottoman, not Portuguese, not Spanish, not anywhere in known archives. That absence is significant, and skeptics lean heavily on it. Extraordinary claims, they argue, require far more than a suggestive coastline. Still, absence of a record isn't automatic proof something didn't happen. History is full of voyages that went undocumented or were destroyed. The Ottoman archives themselves suffered fires, wars, and deliberate destruction. Entire libraries were lost during centuries of political upheaval. So we're left piecing together fragments across a fragmented historical record. The intelligence trail is real. Where it truly originates is not. That uncertainty is precisely what keeps this mystery alive today. Now let's put the ancient map against modern satellite data directly. In 1949, a joint Norwegian-British-Swedish team surveyed Antarctica's bedrock. They used seismic soundings to map terrain beneath the ice sheet. This gave scientists the first real picture of Antarctica's true coastline. Decades later, researchers overlaid that bedrock map against Piri Reis's chart. At certain projections, the coastlines appeared to share loose similarities. Enthusiasts pointed to matching bays, inlets, and general coastal curvature. Skeptical cartographers immediately raised serious methodological concerns about that comparison. Maps from 1513 didn't use consistent modern projection systems. Comparing them directly to satellite data requires significant creative adjustment. Critics argue you can force many old coastlines to match something. With enough rotation and stretching, patterns emerge from pure coincidence. This is a known cognitive bias called pareidolia in cartographic analysis. Our brains are wired to find patterns even where none exist. Still, defenders argue the match is too specific to dismiss outright. They'd point to particular bay shapes that seem oddly consistent. Modern satellite imaging lets anyone test this comparison for themselves today. Websites and documentaries have recreated the overlay using digital tools. Results vary wildly depending on which projection method gets chosen. That variability is itself telling, according to professional cartographers. A genuine match shouldn't require this much selective adjustment to work. Meanwhile, mainstream geographers offer a simpler explanation entirely instead. They argue the southern landmass is actually South America, distorted. Renaissance mapmakers often curved unknown coastlines to fit page constraints. Compiling multiple partial source maps naturally introduces cumulative distortion errors. The result could easily resemble something else by pure visual accident. There's also the historical concept of terra australis to consider. Ancient Greek geographers theorized a massive southern continent for balance. The idea persisted through medieval and Renaissance cartography for centuries. Mapmakers sometimes drew speculative southern landmasses based on that theory alone. Piri Reis may have blended real coastline data with theoretical land. That would explain both the impressive accuracy and the odd distortion. It's a far less sensational explanation, but a genuinely plausible one. Satellite technology today can't prove intent from 5 centuries ago. It can only compare shapes, and shapes alone don't confirm authorship. This is where the mystery becomes more art than hard science. Both sides use the same satellite data to support opposite conclusions. That tension is exactly why this topic keeps resurfacing online. It photographs well, it sounds dramatic, and it resists easy answers. The honest conclusion: the overlay is suggestive, not scientifically definitive. No peer-reviewed cartographic study has confirmed an intentional Antarctic match. No study has fully disproven it either, which keeps debate alive. We're left analyzing 500-year-old ink against modern satellite precision. That gap in tools makes certainty almost impossible to achieve here. Which brings us to the boldest theory this map has inspired. One involving a hidden voyage lost entirely to recorded history. So who, theoretically, could have mapped an ice-free Antarctic coast? Hapgood's theory pointed toward an advanced, unnamed ancient seafaring culture. He believed this civilization predated Egypt, Sumer, and known history itself. A bold claim, built on interpretation rather than direct physical evidence. Proponents point to other maps showing similarly disputed southern landmasses. The Orontes Phineas map of 1531 is frequently cited alongside Piri Reis. It also shows a southern continent with debated Antarctic-like features. The Zeno map from the 1380s adds another layer to the mystery. Together, theorists argue these form a pattern too consistent to ignore. Critics counter that all three maps share the same likely explanation. They're variations on the same Terra Australis theoretical tradition, not evidence. Cartographers frequently copied each other's speculative southern landmasses for generations. One mapmaker's guess could easily become another's assumed reference source. That copying chain alone could explain suspicious cross-map similarities entirely. Still, theorists ask a fair question. Why guess so specifically? Speculative maps of unknown regions are typically vague and simplified. The Piri Reis coastline, by contrast, shows notable coastal detail. Bays, rivers, and mountain ranges appear in surprisingly specific positions. That specificity is what continues to fuel the secret expedition theory. If it's guesswork, proponents argue, it's remarkably lucky guesswork indeed. Some researchers propose an alternate, less dramatic explanation for this detail. Perhaps early southern voyages did occur, just never got formally documented. Fishing fleets, whalers, and rogue traders often avoided official record-keeping. A ship blown off course could glimpse land and simply move on. Its captain might sketch the coast without ever filing a report. That sketch could circulate informally among sailors for years afterward. Eventually, fragments could reach a compiler like Piri Reis indirectly. This wouldn't require an ancient lost civilization, just an unrecorded voyage. It's a middle ground theory that some historians find more plausible. It preserves the mystery while staying within known human seafaring capability. Still, it remains speculation without a single confirmed source document. No captain's log, no royal record, no surviving eyewitness account exists. That absence keeps this firmly in the realm of educated guesswork. Yet the alternative, pure coincidence, doesn't fully satisfy everyone either. The specificity of certain coastal features is genuinely hard to dismiss. This tension between coincidence and hidden history is the map's core appeal. It offers just enough mystery to resist a clean, final answer. That's precisely why it keeps appearing across decades of documentaries. Every generation rediscovers it and relitigates the same core debate. Was it a secret voyage, ancient memory, or elaborate cartographic coincidence? The map itself stays silent, offering only lines on aging gazelle skin. Piri Reis took whatever answer he knew to his execution in 1553. No confession, no clarification, no named source for that specific coastline. Which leaves us exactly where researchers have stood for 60 years. Fascinated, frustrated, and staring at the same unresolved cartographic puzzle. Now let's hear directly from the historians who reject this theory. Their argument is less thrilling, but it deserves equal, serious weight. Because good research means examining every side, not just the exciting one. Let's be fair, most professional historians reject the Antarctic theory entirely. Their skepticism isn't dismissive, it's grounded in documented cartographic practice. First, they point to the map's known projection method directly. Renaissance Portolan charts used flat, compass-based projections, not modern geometry. Applying modern satellite comparisons to that system introduces massive potential distortion. Cartographic historian Gregory McIntosh studied the map extensively for decades. His research concluded the southern coastline is South America, curved eastward. He argues this reflects common compilation errors from combining separate source maps. Piri Reis was merging data from sailors describing different unnamed coastlines. Without satellite verification, aligning those descriptions perfectly was nearly impossible then. Small errors compound dramatically when copying maps by hand repeatedly. Each new copy risked introducing fresh distortions into the final product. This is a well-documented problem across historical cartography, not unique here. Second, skeptics challenge the crustal displacement theory on solid geological grounds. Modern plate tectonics research shows continental movement happens over millions of years. Not within the time frame of any human civilization, however ancient. Ice core samples confirm Antarctica has been frozen for millions of years. There's no geological evidence supporting a recent ice-free coastal period. This directly undermines the core premise of Hapgood's original theory. Third, historians question the reliability of Piri Reis's cited sources. His claim of using an Alexander-era map lacks any corroborating evidence. Ancient Greek cartography from that period simply hasn't survived to verify. Grand source claims were sometimes used to add prestige. Historians note. This doesn't make Piri Reis dishonest, just working within period norms. Exaggerating a source's age was common practice among Renaissance scholars generally. Fourth, the famous 1960 Air Force letter gets frequently misrepresented online. Lieutenant Colonel Harold Ohlmeyer analyzed the map's projection accuracy, not its origins. He never claimed the map proved an ancient advanced civilization existed. That leap was added later by authors promoting the broader theory. Careful reading of his actual letter reveals far more limited claims. Fifth, no archaeological evidence supports any advanced pre-Ice Age seafaring culture. No tools, no settlements, no artifacts have ever been found supporting this. Extraordinary historical claims typically require extraordinary, verifiable physical evidence. Right now, this theory rests almost entirely on visual coastline interpretation. That's a thin foundation for rewriting the entire timeline of exploration. Historians aren't dismissing curiosity, they're demanding stronger, testable proof. Science and history both require replicable evidence, not just resemblance. A coastline that looks like something isn't the same as proof. Skeptics also know confirmation bias plays a heavy role here. Once you're told to see Antarctica, your brain will find it. That's not deception, it's basic, well-documented human visual psychology. None of this makes the map less genuinely fascinating historically. It remains an extraordinary artifact of 16th century Ottoman naval knowledge. Its real story, historians argue, is compiled intelligence, not lost civilization. That story is honestly still remarkable, even without ancient mystery attached. Understanding Ottoman cartographic networks alone is a rich historical subject. Sometimes the real history is compelling enough without added embellishment. So where does that leave us after weighing both serious arguments? Let's lay both arguments side by side honestly and without bias. For the mystery, the coastline shows surprisingly specific coastal detail. For skepticism, Renaissance compilation errors regularly produced surprising misleading detail too. For the mystery, multiple old maps show similar southern landmasses. For skepticism, those maps likely share the same Terra Australis tradition. For the mystery, Piri Reis cited genuinely ancient, now lost source maps. For skepticism, source exaggeration was common practice in that era. For the mystery, the 1949 seismic survey shows some coastal similarity. For skepticism, that similarity depends heavily on selected map projection. For the mystery, no confirmed explanation fully accounts for every detail. For skepticism, absence of a perfect explanation isn't proof of mystery. Both sides agree on one thing. The map is extraordinarily well made. Both sides agree Piri Reis compiled from an unusually wide source network. Both sides agree this remains genuinely unresolved in mainstream cartographic history. Where they diverge is how much weight uncertainty deserves here. Skeptics default to the simplest explanation supported by existing evidence. Theorists argue the simplest explanation doesn't account for every detail cleanly. This is a classic case of Occam's razor versus lingering doubt. Science generally favors the explanation requiring the fewest new assumptions. A distorted, compiled South American coastline requires far fewer leaps. An ancient lost civilization requires evidence that currently doesn't exist. That doesn't make the mystery worthless, it makes it unproven. Unproven and impossible are two very different categories entirely. The Piri Reis map sits firmly in unresolved historical territory. It's a genuine puzzle, studied by real cartographers, not just theorists. What it isn't, currently, is confirmed evidence of a secret voyage. That distinction matters if we want to respect actual historical rigor. Mystery and misinformation can look similar if we're not careful here. The responsible position holds curiosity and skepticism at the same time. You can find this fascinating without accepting every dramatic claim uncritically. You can respect mainstream historians without dismissing genuine unanswered questions either. That balance is exactly what good historical investigation should look like. The Piri Reis map earns its legendary status through documented complexity. Not because it definitively proves anything about ancient lost civilizations. Its real power is the questions it forces us to ask. How much unrecorded history existed outside official state archives entirely? How much knowledge traveled through trade routes we'll never fully trace? How much confidence we should place in any single historical timeline? These questions matter regardless of whether Antarctica theory proves true. They challenge us to stay curious about incomplete historical records generally. Because history isn't always a clean, fully documented, linear story. Sometimes it's fragments, gaps, and educated guesses stitched together carefully. The Piri Reis map is one of history's most compelling fragments. Whether it hides a secret voyage may never be fully answered. And honestly, that unresolved tension is exactly why it still matters. So here's where 5 centuries of mystery leaves us today. A map drawn in 1513, still confusing experts in 2026. Not because it's fake, but because it's genuinely hard to explain. Mainstream historians lean toward distorted South American coastline, compiled with error. Theorists lean toward lost knowledge from a voyage history forgot entirely. Both positions are argued by serious, credentialed researchers, not amateurs. Neither side currently has definitive, universally accepted proof of their claim. That's rare in a world obsessed with quick, confident answers. Sometimes the most honest conclusion is simply, we don't fully know. What we do know is Piri Reis compiled extraordinary intelligence networks. Ottoman naval power stretched across stolen, traded, and captured world knowledge. That alone makes this map a remarkable historical artifact worth studying. Add the unresolved southern coastline, and you get lasting global fascination. This is why the map keeps resurfacing every single generation. New satellite tools, new documentaries, same 500-year-old unanswered question. Maybe someday new evidence will settle this debate once and for all. Until then, it remains one of cartography's most compelling open cases. So I'll leave the final judgment entirely up to you now. Coincidence born from Renaissance guesswork or history's greatest cartographic secret? Drop your theory in the comments, I genuinely want to hear it. If this pulled you in, there's another map even stranger. The Orontius Phineas chart raises questions this video barely touched. I'm covering it next, and you won't want to miss it. Subscribe now so you don't lose this rabbit hole entirely. Hit the bell, because these mysteries deserve careful, ongoing investigation. Thanks for sticking with the evidence instead of the easy answer. Real history rarely fits into one clean, satisfying narrative anyway. The Piri Reis map proves that better than almost anything else. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep questioning maps. See you in the next investigation.